Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'll start today with an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the many lands on which we create and share our learning resources. We acknowledge the traditional owners as the original storytellers, teachers, and students of the land that we call Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present, and we also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. And today I am presenting on Wurundjeri country as part of the Kulin Nations. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on mastering handwriting and overcoming common challenges faced by teachers, by you all. My name is Megan, and I'm a learning designer here at Oxford University Press in Melbourne, NAM. Today, we'll be exploring different challenges commonly faced when teaching handwriting in the classroom, and we'll be hearing from three brilliant speakers who will be sharing their expert insights. So, excuse me. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers for this evening. Samantha Donnan is a teacher who loves to write teaching and learning resources that are accessible, practical, and evidence-based for teachers and students alike. She has worked across both primary and high schools in many different roles. In her current role, she works in distance education, supporting a variety of learners and teachers to unpack the new syllabus requirements in New South Wales. She is passionate about the science of reading and the science of learning and ensuring all students can participate in high quality learning experiences. So thank you, Sam, for joining us.
Thank you.
John Longley is an experienced primary educator and curriculum leader with a background in both public and independent schools across Australia. He brings deep expertise from teaching across all primary year levels and has contributed to the broader education community as a presenter, a curriculum developer, educational consultant, and VCAA assessor. John is committed to designing and strengthening systems that help students, teachers, and school communities flourish. He is especially passionate about ensuring all learners have access to the wonder and joy of learning. Thank you, John, so much for being here. And last but definitely not least, Kelsie brings 10 years of experience teaching lower primary students, along with 8 years of expertise in curriculum design. She's passionate about age-appropriate literacy instruction, especially in the early years, and Kelsie is dedicated to helping young learners develop strong foundational skills. In this webinar, along with Sam and John, she will share insights and strategies, drawing on years of practical experience and specialised knowledge. So welcome, thank you, Kelsie, and I will hand over to you all.
Thank you so much, Megan, and thank you, Bryn and the Oxford team. Well, on behalf of Kelsie and Samantha and myself, we're just pleased to be here. We're thankful for the opportunity to talk handwriting and kind of nerd out as we get to talk together about this. It's good. There is a team right across Australia that are interested in investing in education and building systems that will help our young ones flourish and have every opportunity. So whether you're doing some gardening and listening to this afterwards, whether you are just coming home from work, whether you're stirring a pot of pasta at the moment, we hope that you're going to be encouraged and hear about some of the things that you're already doing in education and supporting learners. And we also hope that you can take some fruit from what we talk about this evening as well, that you might be inspired to try some new things or to get back at that obstacle that's sort of been stopping you from feeling like you're hitting that mark with allowing kids to access mastery in handwriting. So we've got a poll that we'd like you to look at. It's a little bit of an interactive piece in our webinar now, where we challenge you to think, what are the biggest obstacles that you've encountered when teaching handwriting? And just to get those juices flowing and start to think, it could be just that limited time. We have a broad curriculum, many demands. You often hear the media, the crowded curriculum. There's a lot to do, isn't there? Right across every year level. That might be one of your challenges. Samantha?
For me, when we talked about this, for me, it was that lack of professional training in explicit handwriting instruction. And I know when I trained to be a teacher all those years ago, it certainly wasn't in my university degree, which is a real shame. And so for me, from that lack of training, is that confidence to be able to teach it and teach it well. Kelsie?
Yeah, something that I have found challenging is being reminded in myself to prioritize it, that it's not an add-on, but it is such an important part of what we do across so many different subject areas, that being able to write well underpins so many things, but it's easy to forget. It is easy to see it as an add-on. So that's been a challenge for me, is keeping it at the front, keeping it as a priority in the classroom.
Yeah, and there's that pressure too across so many schools to prioritize digital tools. And then we have that other pressure of inconsistent approaches across your school. There'll be some educators listening that have fantastic programs, but they start in January and end in December, and who knows what happens in the next year. So even that inconsistency across year to year can be an obstacle there. So reflect on those challenges. I believe you'll have a pop-up prompt there, and we're keen to look into some of your voice towards the end of our chat this evening, and keen to see what your own perspective is. Let's take a moment just to read over this very complex sentence about a complex skill. That handwriting is a complex perceptual motor skill encompassing a blend of visual motor coordination abilities, motor planning, tactile and kinesthetic sensitivities, but also cognitive and perceptual skills. Handwriting matters. We can agree on that. It's not just for neat work, but it underpins so many of our other activities: reading, journaling about what you're reading, spelling, maths, creation of story, and sharing text. And there's been some studies, and the one noticed on your little screen there found that 30% of students found handwriting challenge in their study. And for 10%, the difficulties were long-term, and they actually affected learning across all other subject areas. So the challenges are even more common for students with neurodevelopmental or motor needs as well. So when writing is hard to read, there's this other little challenge there, because the sad truth is that some students actually might get marked down just because of their handwriting. And some teachers may not grade fairly because of that. They're looking only at the secretarial elements instead of the authorial elements. So explicit handwriting instruction, particularly in the early years, is what's vital to set up the students for success. When we've met over Zoom and we've had these long discussions together about what to share tonight, one of the things that really came up was we want to encourage educators. You're doing so many good things. You're meeting the needs of the kids in your care, and you know them well. You are the most effective tool in the classroom. So well done on getting in the car or walking, getting to work each day, and getting in those rooms and helping those young ones flourish. And we need to remember, as well as we're learning about all of these other strategies and techniques, Andy Hargreaves says educational reforms are like ripe fruit. They rarely travel well. So some of the strategies might actually not fit well in your context, but we want to talk together, because community and shared ideas is the way that we can move forward and provide the access for our students. So tonight we want to talk about the significance of explicit instruction. We want to talk about integrating handwriting with phonics, and we want to talk about the role of handwriting and keyboarding in our instruction. So we hope that you'll be able to agree that explicit handwriting teaching, the integration of handwriting and phonics learning, and writing and keyboarding together to build hybrid writers is key in our practice. So Samantha, could you get us started with a bit of a dive into the significance of explicit instruction?
Thanks, John, and thanks for such a great introduction. So I have the pleasure tonight of taking you through the significance of explicit instruction. So let's begin. For teachers already familiar with the reading rope developed by Dr. Hollis Scarborough, you will notice the visual and conceptual inspiration here on the screen now. Just as a reading rope illustrates how language comprehension and word recognition work together so beautifully to support skilled reading, the writing rope on your screen now, conceptualised by Joan Sedita, weaves together the many strands that contribute to proficient writing. Each strand you can see on your screen, from critical thinking to syntax, structure and writing craft, plays a role. But at the very foundation, of course, is transcription. And transcription, I mean handwriting and keyboarding. When transcription becomes effortless, it frees up cognitive space for the higher level demands of writing, like planning, elaborating, and editing, all really important parts of the writing process. That's why explicit instruction is vital. It's not just a fine motor task. It's a literacy tool that supports both reading and writing development. Oh, one back. There we go. Thank you. So let's take a closer look at handwriting's role in the writing rope. This table on your screen now shows how handwriting connects to each of the strands in Sedita's writing rope. The most obvious, of course, is transcription, where the connection is direct. Through explicit handwriting instruction, students learn letter formation and reinforce their understanding of letter-sound relationships. This, of course, supports both reading and writing fluency, but handwriting plays an indirect role in the other strands. For example, fluent handwriting frees up working memory, allowing students to focus on critical thinking, such as planning, idea generation, and revision. It also supports syntax by allowing students to think about sentence construction rather than how to form each letter. When transcription is automatic, students can better organise their ideas, so their structure of writing and their stylistic choices or their writing craft. In short, handwriting may seem small, but it underpins the whole writing process. So how can we structure our lessons for skill development and do so explicitly? And here are some learnings and some hints and tips from that explicit teaching approach. In early years instruction, teaching handwriting alongside a phonics scope and sequence, where we link the physical act of writing letters and matching them to their sounds. We start lessons with fine motor warm-ups to build strength and control. We also would consider our classroom layout, so we ensure that all students can view the teacher, that expert, as they model and demonstrate. It's often talked about and argued that we would consider rows in classrooms as opposed to groups of tables, so all students have that clear vision of the teacher, what they're doing and when. Short, regular, daily handwriting only practice sessions to build muscle memory and automaticity until students exhibit mastery. And further to John's quote earlier, where we incorporate multisensory techniques in our teaching, in that visual element, we see how the letter is formed. The tactile element, we feel how the letter is formed. And that auditory element, we hear how the letter is formed. We progress from simple strokes to letters to words, and then, of course, to sentence level. And we reinforce neat, legible handwriting during all written tasks. And lastly, students should do specific handwriting practice, letters and numerals, with pencil in hand on paper, as opposed to doing other activities that are about handwriting. So, and I know Kelsie will elaborate on that further in our presentation. One back. Teaching handwriting explicitly means we start with the basics. We start with good posture, good pencil grip, and stroke formation. We teach our students to sit correctly with our feet flat on the ground, our back straight, and our paper angled, depending if you're a left-handed student or a right-handed student. Then we model that tripod grip clearly and often, thumb, index, and middle finger, and where they're positioned on the pencil. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we start with letter formation and we start with our simple strokes, lines and curves, before moving to letters. We use a clear sequence. We trace, we guide, and then we do some independent copying. These small structured steps all help students to build accuracy and confidence. So I'll take my last two slides really revolve around modeling guided practice and feedback, which are all essential parts of that explicit instruction framework. Explicit instruction in handwriting is not just best practice. It's supported by decades of research into the science of learning. So what elements are really crucial to an explicit handwriting lesson? I'll explain. First is modelling. Modelling is critical. It shows students exactly how a letter is formed, where it starts, the direction of the strokes, the posture we use, and how to hold the pencil correctly. This gives them a visual and physical blueprint to copy. Then comes our guided practice. This is where students try it themselves, but with scaffolding. You might provide prompts, verbal cues, or model alongside them. As they build confidence, your support gradually fades, aligning with the gradual release of responsibility model. Feedback is the final piece, and it's powerful. Immediate specific feedback helps students correct errors before they become habits. It's about shaping fluent and accurate motor memory early. This whole sequence, we model, we guide, we practice, and we give feedback, reflects what we know about effective teaching and aligns with our multi-tiered system of supports. By using explicit teaching strategies like modelling and guided practice in Tier 1, we create a strong foundation for all students and reduce the number of who might need intervention later. Every student can benefit from it, and it's essential for those who struggle with fine motor or visual motor perception. And my last slide is taking you through that gradual release of responsibility in handwriting. What does it look like? Very, very specifically. It's a great framework and it applies beautifully to handwriting. In that I do phase, the teacher models, like I said before, this isn't just about the final product. It's narrating the process with the script, where the letter starts, the direction of each stroke, the posture, the grip. Students need to see it done clearly and repeatedly. And you can see here in our first particular part where it says I do, it's where we track. Then we move to the we do phase, and it's that nuanced part of the new we do phase where we're handing it from teacher to student. Here, the teacher supports students as they attempt the task. You might trace letters together, provide more prompts, or stop and correct as needed. This is the stage where feedback is most powerful. The you do together introduces some peer practice as well. Students might work in pairs, watching each other, giving gentle reminders, or practicing on whiteboards side by side. It's a great way to reinforce skills and do so socially. And finally, in the you do alone phase, that independent phase, this is the independent writing part of the I do, we do, you do. This is the goal, confident, fluent handwriting that students can apply in real writing tasks. The key is that we don't skip the steps. We gradually shift responsibility from teacher to student as skills become more secure, giving all the learners the time and support they need to succeed. And as I finish, for me, and we will do this in each of our presentations, explicit handwriting instruction is important. And it's important and essential for automatic fluent transcription, which enables students to focus on higher order aspects of writing. Without sufficient handwriting skills, students are hindered in their journey to becoming skilled, independent writers. And now it's over to Kelsie, who will talk about integrating handwriting with phonics learning.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate that. I don't want to speak too much on phonics instruction and pedagogy. Obviously, there are many resources available for that, and that's not our main focus for this evening. But I do want to discuss the link between handwriting and phonics, and then share some practical solutions that might help specifically those of you who teach in lower primary classrooms. But if you're not a lower primary teacher, don't take this opportunity to have a snooze. I hope that there's something of value in this section for you as well. So Berninger states, and I've got it on the screen here, that learning to form letters by hand improves perception of letters and contributes to better reading and spelling. And Lowenstein, in writing about some of Berninger's work, writes that when done in conjunction with phonics instruction, handwriting equips students with the knowledge and skills to become more fluent writers. And this is what we're working towards, as Sam said, fluency in reading and writing. She shared earlier that transcription skills are essential to fluent written expression. But we are also now aware that handwriting skills are essential to fluency in reading as well, especially in those lower introductory years. This is when, that when students have a multisensory introduction to a concept, that they do have a greater ability to retain it. So when we are learning phonics and introducing new letters, we have the sound, the phoneme, we have the visual, the grapheme. We're already engaging two senses, and we'd love to be incorporating a third sense into that as well. to give that multisensory approach. So what we'd like to be doing when we can is having some kind of touch or movement within that lesson, within that introduction. We can achieve this through, a number of different ways, whether through moving the whole body, whether through moving the hands and the fingers, and also by using a pencil or other tool to write the letter. And in this way, the physical act of handwriting or another movement supports the phoneme-grapheme correspondence and does help students to retain this information and be able to apply it elsewhere. And I'll talk a little bit more about some more practical strategies in a moment. So beyond individual phoneme and grapheme recognition, proficiency in handwriting also supports extended reading, and writing fluency. So if students don't have the ability and confidence to accurately write individual letters, they will likely struggle with confidently and fluently writing whole words and whole sentences. When we allow handwriting instruction the time to shine, we provide students with the opportunity to develop automaticity and fluency in their transcription skills, allowing them to write their ideas with confidence. We also want to continue to practice handwriting to build legibility, as Samantha said as well, because we want students to be able to read what they've written. We want other students to be able to read what they've written as well. It's really, really vital that students are aware conceptually that what they put into print it has more purpose than just putting it into print in that moment, that they can then read it back, that their peers can read it back, that when they're writing a story, they can have an audience in mind. And when they build their legibility skills, it creates the pathway to that they can read back what they've written and they can share what they've written. Again, Berninger states that automatic letter writing promotes better composing, both amount written and quality of writing. And Lowenstein shares that teaching letter formation plays a critical role in acquiring reading skills, allowing connections to be made in the brain as students form letters using their motor skills. So again, we really do see that connection between body and brain in this area. Now we know that time is tight and the curriculum is full, and it can seem daunting and overwhelming to fit more into your already cramped days. And I'd like to offer some simple and some more complex options for integrating both body movement and writing into your phonics lessons and activities that can support your students, both their phonemic development as well as their handwriting skills. Now, I know that everybody, different schools, different year levels, different teachers operate their classrooms differently with different routines. So some of these things might not be applicable in your context, but I hope that you can at least find one little gem in here that might help you. So perhaps for you during the introduction or practice phase of phonemes, you might be able to take just an extra 15 to 30 seconds to practice the letter formation with a finger in the air on the carpet, on their hand, maybe on a friend's back. You can prompt with things like who can use their whole hand to write a big letter on the mat, who can make a tiny letter on their hand with their pinky finger. Even just simple strategies like writing letters with coloured pencils, crayons or markers onto butcher's paper rather than in their book can be an engaging way for just getting your kids to connect with that content in a way that doesn't seem like a rigid handwriting lesson. Depending on your classroom routine, other activities such as tracing letters with a finger into sand or shaving foam can be fun ways for students to engage with their phonics learning while also building the fine motor skills and letter recognition. They could also move around the room to find different letter writing stations, maybe large pieces of paper on the wall, maybe on the floor or taped under a desk, where they can write the designated letter before moving to another station. Just gets their bodies moving in different ways. Lying on their back with their arms reached above them is not something that students are typically doing when they're writing, but just engaging their bodies in a different way. During book work, something that I love to do, I get the students to just do one line at a time, and then once they've finished their line, while they're waiting, they look at their own work, they pick their best letter. And then when they're ready to do the next line, or when I give that instruction, I ask them to write their next row all exactly like their best letter from their first one. It's giving them the opportunity to see again what they've done, to build confidence in what they have, what they've produced. And rather than getting discouraged by maybe something that's not very neat, they're looking for their best work. And I do discourage my students from going ahead. I would prefer incomplete correct work rather than a whole page where they've practiced incorrect formation. And I guess something else to share with you too is that, in my opinion, students don't need to do the whole page. If that's not what works in your classroom, if it's not what works for that particular student, if you're getting your best work by just doing half a page in that session, just doing 2 lines, or doing the pages in a different order, that's allowed. And I want to sort of give you permission as teachers to trust what you know, trust your knowledge of your students as well. And I'll finish my section by saying that integrating handwriting and phonics learning is important because writing letters by hand leads to better perception of letters during reading and supports writing fluency through the development of muscle memory and automaticity. So I'll pass over to John now to speak on the role of handwriting and keyboarding in the primary years. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Kelsie. Now, I hope that you've been already encouraged. I was so encouraged as Samantha was talking about the gradual release of responsibility, and I was thinking about that beautiful aha moment where the kids feel like they're taking the keys and they're having a go in the driver's seat, and we're there with them. We're close to the action, so we're giving that feedback, but the students are starting to drive for themselves, and I just felt such just encouragement. That is such a precious moment as educators that we get to be there for that. And it will forever be in my mind, Kelsie's Sistine Chapel technique, lying down, practicing some handwriting upside down. That's a great little tip there. I think that'll be fun in my Year 6 classroom. We might get that going a little bit later in the week. So some great ways to provide access to the task. It's so important that we provide opportunities for our students to have access. I want you, wherever you are, to think about the last time you digitally recorded a note or the last time you physically recorded a note. Was it a short note that you left so that your husband wouldn't forget something, or was it a little note in the lunchbox to the kids? Was it a little note about something that you needed to send in an email? Was it typed there? We live in a time where maybe the last moment was a typed piece, even on a phone. Maybe the last time was a physically recorded piece. I want you to embrace this idea of hybrid writers. We have this responsibility to develop fluency in both keyboarding and handwriting. It is demanded of us of producing hybrid writers, and the opportunities open up if you are a fluent hybrid writer. So we want to provide access to our students here. So one day they can be writing little notes with a pen, or they could be typing it out. So I want to talk to you about balancing traditional and digital writing tools in the classroom. The question is, when do we do this? When do we introduce this? It's so important that we understand that our time in the classroom with our students is just a small piece of their long learning journey that we hope goes on and on and on and on and on until they're sitting in a rocking chair reading off to their kids, and they're thinking, oh yes, one day I did learn to do something and now I can read this lovely story. So learning goes on a long time, and the time we've got with them is precious. How are we going to use it? We need to understand that traditional writing tools and digital writing tools are complementary, and they're not quite competing processes. Each one activates a different cognitive and neural pathway, but growing in fluency in one, the research says that it actually supports fluency in the other. So we really want to see handwriting to keyboarding, this kind of lean here. And really where there are some quite strong arguments for, against an introduction to keyboarding too soon. So handwriting is ideal for note-taking, planning, drafting. Typing is often more useful for your editing, revising, producing extended texts. And we know that students with learning difficulties, dysgraphia, dyslexia, they may benefit from access to both modalities. So this ensures equitable access to learning. So we can use this tool and leverage into these to provide access for students if they may struggle with a handwriting mode. A balanced writing program. I know the word balanced can sometimes be a bit of an ick for some, but we really need to think about and, okay, not an or. A balanced program enables students to select the appropriate tool for them in their secondary program. They need to be able to choose the most effective tool, and that will enhance quality and engagement as well. And as Kelsie said, it's so important for our students to understand that they are authors. What they create matters, and they need to be able to choose the tool that is the best fit for them. Developing foundational writing fluency for later literacy tasks is key. We need to think about this from a point of view of perspective. So when we think about what the researchers have found, we can see that there is a key difference between the handwriting practice of the junior years of primary up to the senior years of primary. So we know that handwriting is a biologically secondary skill, and it needs that sustained and explicit teaching. Mastering handwriting contributes to improvement in reading, spelling, sentence construction, and it helps eliminate that cognitive overload. Because if you've got those tricks in your tool belt, you're not thinking if A is a push across or pull back, or what was the song about the cat? You're just writing the letter. So we need to get that mastery to allow access. Now, we know that motor learning theory shows that handwriting supports motor schema development. So if we're working on that handwriting development early, it then allows for some automation and that automaticity, fun word to say, later on. So let's invest in our junior years so we can lean forward and leverage that in our upper years. So really from years F, foundation, or kinder, depending on what state you're listening from, we want our children to build from letter formation to fluency, so that by upper primary, handwriting is more automatic and there is some free working memory for composition. So between ages 10 to 14, writing typically becomes faster and more fluid, but it often comes at the expense of legibility. So that's why that instruction on handwriting can't just stop and then turn into keyboarding. We need to make sure that that drop of legibility around those ages of 10 to 14, really, we're looking at you upper primary. We need to make sure that an instruction doesn't just cool right off, but we're still looking at accuracy, pace, and legibility. They're crucial focus areas for the upper years. When we think now about writing speed, I mentioned pace. What are some appropriate targets that we can look for here? What on student preference tells us, are students preferring a physical means of writing or keyboarding? So in an Australian study, Writing for All, they found that year 2 students actually preferred typing, so the preference was there for typing, but the quality and volume was actually there by hand. So we know that younger primary students will produce higher quality and greater volume if they're producing it by hand. So this suggests that handwriting fluency still in the junior years outpaces keyboarding. Then by the upper primary and secondary years, students with developed keyboarding skills might get longer text by typing, particularly useful for drafting and revision. You think about changing the order of your persuasive paragraphs if you've written it all by hand. So there is a benefit for keyboarding practice. And here I want us to think about how we can make this authentic. Could it be connected to reading? Is the content rich? There are so many keyboarding programs that might be there in your practice where students are not just typing AD, 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 AS, AS, A, but we are typing full sentences about how Wi-Fi was invented. Some fantastic links into our inquiry content there. Without automaticity, we understand that either modality, that's keyboarding or handwriting, our cognitive load will increase. And so our writing quality suffers. So we need to work towards that automaticity. So now we're starting to think, what's this scope picture look like? Where are we going in terms of printing leading to cursive? Then where are we introducing keyboarding? Well, I think this great graphic helps us. Now, this is an American piece, but we can think about this in our Australian context as well. Keyboarding, we know, should not replace handwriting, but we need to make sure it is introduced after handwriting is established. You're typically looking at years 3 to 4 for keyboarding composition. However, pre-keyboarding skills, we're talking about hand and finger strength, understanding of use of mouse, understanding of where some keys are on your keyboard. You can look to foundation to year 2. And that aligns also with our literacy continuum for the Australian curriculum and also within your states. Keyboarding fluency can be built on from year 3 onwards when the student's motor control is better, and then we can support leading to touch typing rather than granny fingers. Sorry if there's grannies there, we love you and we love the way you type, but it is an interesting technique for kids. Teaching keyboarding parallel with ongoing handwriting instruction is our game, because we want to develop hybrid writers, students who can switch depending on the task and depending on their context. So early access is our message, early access to some understanding, but we need to keep that instruction going right across. We don't want any access limited there. So I wanted to share with you, and you'll actually have this available. This is by no means a brilliant document that has changed the world, but in my context, we've looked at how we can build a scope and sequence so that we can see that gradual release, not just in our 12 months when they're in our care, but across our primary years. So you can see that in this document, we've tried to align it with we're an Australian Curriculum 9 school. So we've tried to align this with the literacy continuum, as well as our content descriptors and our achievement standard. And then we've also aligned it with some recommendations about student maturity level and appropriateness in terms of motor development. And we've also even thought about our engagement. So we've got a few programs at our college that might be an idea for you. If you're thinking engagement in the senior levels is a bit difficult, we scope across our school things like a mechanical pencil program. Now, it's a win because now it's a bit exciting. We get to use a mechanical pencil in that year, but we also get a win because it helps with pressure. If you've got a mechanical pencil, all of a sudden you're not going to press too hard. And now in the senior years, you're not going to get that cramp when you're writing that essay. Then we have a fountain pen program, and our fountain pen program helps understand pressure. If you push too hard, you're going to make a mess. If you don't push hard enough, you're not going to write anything. And then we move on to our standard biro pen in our senior year. So there are just some little things there that we've found to be successful in many ways. Are there things we can improve in there? Yes. Is it a working document? Yes. But I thought that's something to share with you if you're finding that one of your obstacles is that you'd like your practice to stretch out a little bit more beyond your year. So I thought I'd share that with you. We understand that a scope like this would ensure developmental readiness. It would promote equitable and consistent instruction. It would support whole school assessment and reporting because we're all on about the same thing. And it prepares students for this hybrid writing world that they're going to be in. So yes, you might have a program that you're using like an Oxford scope and sequence. Those documents are very helpful, but you can also think about your dotted third size or the materials that they're going to be using physically in the classroom. How can we scope those? So I hope you can see from some of the points that I've raised that writing and keyboarding fluency are important because students need to become confident hybrid writers who can communicate and record effectively using both their traditional and their digital tools. So we can gain some success when facing the obstacles of time restraints, inconsistent approaches, and the demand to balance handwriting and keyboarding instruction if we think about that broad picture. So I want to encourage you in that, and I'm more than willing to start some conversations with you if you're a teacher looking to talk to some of your curriculum heads about where you might take this beyond your year. It's time now where we really want to think about some practical strategies and classroom tips, some things that we might be able to leverage into. We've got some points here that Samantha's got to share with us about some of the supports within the Oxford program. Samantha?
Thanks, John. So what I've got on the screen now is a snipped page from one of the Oxford textbooks from New South Wales, and it was written with explicit instruction in mind, and it was written to support classroom teachers and, of course, the students, but it goes beyond the textbook. So I'll start with the textbook and then I'll show you what else is available in the suite. So we start with our 3P check. there's also a warm-up reminder. And of course, that's all included in the teacher materials. Then there is a positioning prompt there at number 3 with the letter. And what do I mean by that? Is where is the letter situated on the lines that the kids are using? And we wrote the book with one message in mind, to gradually reduce the supports kids need when they're writing. So we have a very dark baseline there, and we want all of our letters. We know that all of our letters sit on the baseline or go through the baseline. That's our key prompt. And like I said, that's when you can see number 3 there, where we've seen the lowercase l, where that sits and how it's positioned. And of course, with the arrows, how we form that letter. Then it comes down to that I do, we do, you do, where we practice our lowercase letters. And then we practice, like I mentioned earlier, we practice at word level. Then we go to our second page and we do some more track, trace and copying in that I do, we do, you do approach of uppercase letters. And we again see where that uppercase letter is situated across our writing lines and our prompts. And we can then talk about the difference between the upper and the lowercase letter as well. We then practice our letters at sentence level, and you can see here we have some lovely little sentences on the screen. And then that key part that Kelsie mentioned, the assessment and feedback, it's really, really critical. And what we decided to do here is that we have a self-assessment component where the students are asked to circle a letter that they think is particularly formed well, or a word, and it could be an uppercase letter or a lowercase letter or both, and then they need to explain why they chose that letter. Why is that the best example of the work they've done today? So they can start to talk in that meta language of handwriting instruction, because that's what we want them to be able to do as well. And then when I get to my next slide, and I won't take up too much time, Oxford also has a really terrific digital interactive tool. And I've just had a quick look at the poll as well to see some of the themes that were coming across. And lots of you have mentioned things about time in the day, time to explore handwriting meaningfully. I'm just reading from the poll. Time restraints and students' lack of engagement for the topic. Absolutely, all real, all relevant, and all things that we've encountered as teachers before. So this is a really wonderful interactive tool which becomes part of your suite of resources as a teacher. We go beyond the textbook at Oxford, and it allows teachers to plan those daily lessons we talked about earlier for that consistent practice using a very, very clever tool. It's almost like having a second or a third teacher in the classroom. It's designed to support that explicit teaching and learning of handwriting in an engaged, very structured and accessible digital format. Its main purpose is to help continue to develop that automatic, fluent and legible handwriting through consistent practice. There's lots of key features. I'll only take you through a few, just through me describing them to you, but there is also a great video on YouTube, which is a link available here at the bottom, which will be available to you at the end to see exactly how it works in real life. You can do further modelling and demonstration of letter formations, and teachers and students can view animated letter formations, ensuring and continuing that accurate modelling of strokes, directions and joins. It again goes back to the I do, we do, you do approach, and the kids can trace and practice letters and words on screens using a mouse, stylus or their finger if they needed to, encouraging further active participation. There's customisable content, which is terrific, which you can really hone in to meet the needs of the kids and the students who are in your class and what they need most and when. You can select fonts, joins and difficulty levels, allowing for various differentiation. And of course, most of our children love that interactive multimodal element, and this tool absolutely works in that setting, and it's really appealing for our digital native learners. And it supports remote or classroom learning on smartboards, tablets and computers, making it really flexible for in-class, and also that small group instruction where you might need to work with some of the students in your class for longer periods of time, while some of your more independent workers can be set different tasks. And lastly, very quickly, further teacher tools to support explicit handwriting from Oxford. There's a whole suite of teacher resources. There's a suite of assessment resources. There's lots and lots and lots of worksheets which can be used and downloaded. There's student award certificates and some acknowledgements as well. So you're not alone in this task. It certainly goes beyond that textbook, that traditional textbook. And I hope you get a chance to have a look at that video when you can.
So thanks everyone. I hope that you'll really be able to hear our passion here for the significance of explicit instruction in working towards this mastering handwriting idea. I hope that you can see some value in integrating handwriting and phonics, and there's a bit of a time win there for you as well. And I hope that you can see that there is value in handwriting and keyboarding working together so that we can build these hybrid writers. And I hope that you are also encouraged to hear some things that you're already doing. This idea of learning being continuous means that we want to add to our tool belt. And please understand this idea of context, that sometimes strategies will work really well in one space and be a challenge in another. So you need to really be thinking about the context that you're in and finding the right fit for it. We had a bit of a poll chat already there about some of the poll results, but we do have some common obstacles that have come up here, and I can see some of them here. I can see they think they don't need it now. They only want to type. And I've heard that in classrooms. It really is hard building things to get that motivation and engagement. And that's where sometimes choice and creativity in tasks, celebrating progress, but avoiding punitive tools or things that can even harm that motivation, and setting and monitoring personal goals or queuing into that authentic audience. Tasks where our handwriting really needs to be on show because this is published in the library, or this is going to be shown in our hall, or this is on our notice board for others. So some authentic tasks are some nice ones there. I wonder, Kelsie, if you could have a talk about this muscle memory or habits developed over years around letter formation.
Yes, I would love to. I've made some notes here. I saw that pop up on the side there. Yes, this is something that I see frequently. I taught prep, so foundation, for a long time, and now teach year one, and it is something that continues to come up. I thought my days of this were past when I left prep, but still in year one, kids who have for a long time done the incorrect formation and then have this muscle memory, and it is such a challenge. And please don't be discouraged by me saying it is a challenge, but more in solidarity with you that it's something that we do see, that we're going to keep seeing. But where I want to encourage you with that is that there's not necessarily something different to do with these students who are coming in, and when they go to write the letter B, rather than a stick and a bounce or whatever you want to call it, they're consistently doing what more closely resembles a number 6. This is something that I see a lot. But when we continue to practice correct formation, when we continue what we want to be doing anyway with all students, this is where the neural pathways are changed. When they're practicing correct formation consistently and having frequent, consistent opportunities to practice the correct formation, this is when we do see those shifts. We create new muscle memory. We're building new neural pathways for those students. Something that I like to do more kind of with my personality, I suppose, is for some of those kids who are doing that, I'd like to just make a joke with them. I don't want anybody to feel bad. If that's what their body's doing, because that's what their body's used to, I don't want them to feel bad, but I'll just make a little joke. You know, if they've written the word big, but the B looks like a 6, I'll come and read it and I'll say, oh, it looks like you've written 6-ig. Which word is this? And we'll have a laugh about it, and then they'll correct it, rather than coming in with a discouraging attitude for those students. So hopefully that is some helpful things to do there. But yes, definitely I see this too, and it is tricky.
I think for that next one there, the lack of consistent practices across classes is a really hard one. We can only control ourselves on a good day. And so this lack of consistent practices is a really hard one. And this is where, as teams in schools, you can be thinking strategically about our plans. Now, do our plans always lead to practice? No, but it helps us build that bigger picture so that we can all be working towards that same united goal. I just want to encourage this one. They all need help, and they have 23 students. I feel it. Those foundation years are tricky. Those prep year 1, 2, or kinder 1, 2, or foundation. What have I missed? I've missed one of the states. I'm sorry, state that I've missed there. But it is a really difficult time there. So I just want to encourage you. You could be thinking about that access in the task, and as Kelsie mentioned before about what success is, so that the students are feeling encouraged, and you are feeling encouraged as well. That it might not be finishing a task in what you planned at the very start of the week, and if you need to tweak that task so that we're having a bit more success while we're still working towards that end goal, it will be better to take little bite sizes so that you reach the full hamburger by the end of the year than to present the hamburger and really be trying each day, and then just feeling like you're not having that success as an educator, and also for your students as well. So it's about that small pace. Now, around pencil grips and one-to-one supports, and there was another one here about students starting school with poor letter formation, and about parents thinking about names, wanting to write names without the motor skills to have the ability. I want to recommend a great book. If there's anyone listening who is really wanting to take that deep dive, there is a book written by Rosemary Sassoon. You may have heard of the font Sassoon. Well, Rosemary's written a book. It's a fantastic book. It was first published in 1976. There's a second edition that came out in 2003. It is called Handwriting, The Way to Teach It. Now, while this is one person's perception of the best way to teach handwriting, there are some great tips in there, particularly for our early years teachers, or if we've got literacy coordinators or English heads. There are some great examples of fonts that you're seeing or letter formations, ideas that you're seeing, and what it may be a cause of, and some strategies that Rosemary has found to be very effective in intervening. So if you're looking at building a system where you're going to address key deficits or supports needed, and then put in programs to support, and you're looking for something with a bit more research behind it there as well, I highly recommend that book. You can access the 1976 on open source PDF through the archive program. And you can, of course, find the new edition available online. So a great little book if anybody's looking for that next level dig. Samantha, I wonder if you could talk about that time restraint and a win that you've seen there.
Definitely. I think time is everyone's challenge in the school setting, especially when it feels like it goes really, really quickly. I think for me, it is using the tools around you. It is going back to when you raised the scope and sequence document, John. Having a document like that as a guide and as a plan, it helps you hone in on what you need to do and when, and not to see the big picture, but maybe to see the small daily pictures of what needs to be achieved on a daily basis with that end goal. What do I want my students to be achieving by the end of the year? And to take advantage of having all of the tools like I've shown you today through the Oxford suite of resources, just one of many, is take advantage of those tools around you to support you, and be kind to yourself. Teaching is hard enough, but if it's available and present and it meets your students' needs and your school's needs and your goals for the kids and students in your class, use them. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel, because there's some wonderful things out there, never more so than in 2025. So, but I do encourage teachers to spend that daily practice. It will pay off in the end. Short, sharp bursts of 15 or 20 minutes, explicitly keeping it simple, having a scope and sequence document, which helps you as a teacher in that back end work process, what to do and when, is really, really valuable. And of course, I reiterate, be kind to yourself, and you're doing wonderful work.
And I think, Sam, when you're talking about that scope and sequence, I think we're in a bit of a unique challenge as well with our curriculum, particularly our Australian curriculum, really leading towards a distinct cursive font and then dropping off a cliff and just having legible handwriting. And I don't mean just legible handwriting, that also could be cursive, because studies have shown that it could be a lot faster. Studies have also shown that as the students are writing in that cursive script, it's actually activating a component of their brain, which is the same as when they're being creative. So therefore, if they're writing something in a cursive font, they're more likely to remember it. So it's activating that memory center. So it's that challenge as we try and align the curriculum which we're mandated to teach with our own perception of our own experiences of handwriting and what it should be, in that bigger picture of all of our peers and colleagues as well. So those conversations are so valuable. So I really encourage people to start those conversations with your peers, so that we can develop a nice system across your settings. Yeah. Kelsie, anything that you're noticing there about entering school with poor letter formation?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said before, this is where the instruction that we give to all students will be helping those students, whether they're coming with no experience with forming letters or whether they're coming with incorrect experience for forming letters. The instruction that we give of correct formation will be helpful to both. The consistent repetition will be helpful to both. And just even continued reminders. I know somebody put a note about a pencil grip there in the poll. Again, this is something that, you feel like you're just saying the same thing over and over, but the more we address it, the more we correct as we're walking around the room, just reminding students of that correct pencil grip. Something that I like to do in lower is I have a little like a little saying, I suppose, that goes with it, that the each finger is a different character, and we talk about them being in the car, that the thumb is dad and the your pointer finger is mum and dad are in the car, they sit in the front and the kids sit in the back. So we can't have the kids coming around into the front because that's not how we drive a car. Things like that. You might use that. You might use something else. These little ways that give more engagement to our students rather than just this is where your hand goes, making it a little bit more fun as well. And something else that I just wanted to touch on, it kind of addresses a couple of the different responses there, just about time and about fine motor development, those kinds of things. I want to encourage you all as well that so much of what we do, we are building skills across different areas that are then useful in other areas. So when we are talking about fine motor development and we're thinking, how can I fit more time? How can I fit more fine motor development into what I'm teaching in handwriting? Think over to your maths lessons where your students are using manipulatives, when they're using MAB blocks or counters, that is improving their fine motor development. Think about when they are maybe having some free play and they're using the Lego, that's building their fine motor development. We don't have to now also be adding in 40 minutes of fine motor development during the week. We can see that we're giving them those skills in other areas as well. So that's something, I guess, to think about when you're thinking, where do I find this time? It's more actually, where do these little things fit in, or where are they already occurring? Where am I already giving my students writing practice that's not a specific handwriting lesson? And how can I maybe just dial that up a little bit? Where are they already having fine motor skill practice, and how can I dial that up a little bit or do that a little bit differently? So you're doing a great job. I know we've all said it, but you're doing a great job. And hopefully we've been able to just give you a few more little tips and tricks to add to your tool belt as you go, whether you're in lower, whether you're in upper, depending on, whatever your specific difficulty is, but whatever your context is, hopefully you've been able to take something from what we've shared this afternoon, and that can help you to be more confident in what you're already doing really well. Yeah. And also just maybe one more thing to try, or something to just try a little bit differently in your practice.
Yeah, that's a great summary, Kelsie. So I hope you can all agree on the significance of explicit instruction, the power of integrating phonics and handwriting, and how you might vision that balance of keyboarding and handwriting. Now, I wonder, Bryn or Megan, would we have an opportunity for a very short Q&A?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for sharing that and your expertise. We have a question here from Mandy in the chat. I'm just going to read it out and let you guys respond. So she says, at our site and in a junior primary setting, many students have gross motor skills, poor core strength, and consequently struggle with handwriting fluency due to their lack of refined fine motor. Apologies. We have been doing some work around fundamental movement skills, cross, left, right, focus activities. Have you found this to be an issue? And do you have any suggestions to help children build these important skills? Is that part of our role in teaching handwriting? Additionally, many children are sadly writing in capitals very early as they see this on screens at home. It is difficult to break this habit. So thank you, Mandy, for sharing that.
That's great. I think Kelsie might have some good expertise in this as she's working in the junior school at the moment. I'll just say that those important programs, you might have your PMP, your perceptual motor program, you might call it mini movers, you might call it anything. There are these wonderful play activities that need to happen. That's part of our learning in those junior years. And yes, handwriting and keyboarding need that crossover. So there are a lot of tasks there where we need to build those motor skills in there. We are seeing it, and so many schools are commenting that they're seeing it more and more post-COVID, particularly with less opportunities to get out and use our hands. So remember that learning, we want that. I'll balance this. We really want to see those pencils on paper. That's an important thing that students are doing as they build proficiency and work towards automaticity. But we understand that teachers know their students best. And if you can see that you need to build some motor skills before we get there, or you can build some motor skills with shorter tasks, short, frequent tasks on paper, and balancing that with plenty of rich experiences of developing fine motor, that is a great way of providing access for your students. Kelsie?
Yeah, I'll just speak quickly on this. I would suggest if this is a cohort-wide difficulty that you're having with more than just a handful of students, it may be a conversation to have with the parent cohort as a whole, that or something that you could implement in whatever your homework program is, that kind of thing, to be encouraging that skill development at home. Not that we want to push it all back onto parents. I do think that we as educators have a responsibility to be building the skills that our students need. However, obviously there are significant time constraints. But I think we need to come into partnership with parents, and also equip parents, because they might not know. They might not know the importance of motor development, both gross motor and fine motor. They might not know how to develop that in their child, and that's a way that we can. That's something that we as teachers and as schools can support our parents in. So if it's obviously depending on the size of your school, it might be a conversation to be having with your curriculum leads to talk about how can you support the parents in that. And in the classroom alone, I know I've spoken about a few different things as well, but just trying to bring that motor development into what you're already doing. We're going to everyone will write one sentence and then we're all going to do 5-star jumps, or, those kinds of things where you can just have a quick 5-second add in. When we're walking from here to there, we'll stop halfway and do some squats or whatever it is. Okay, we're all going to carry some books when we go to the library, that kind of thing, where we're building it into what we're already doing. So I hope that's helpful. Sorry, I know that's quite short with the time constraint there, but I hope that is a little bit helpful for you there. It's a great question and very, very relevant. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm just going to read one more question that's come through from Jennifer. She says, I feel that programs with a lot of verbal instructions for each letter provide too much cognitive load when I can't even remember them myself. Does anyone find this? I don't think it's useful for kids who already struggle.
Yeah, that's where you know your cohort and you know them well. And personally, I've been in some programs where there are very complex, wonderful mnemonics for every letter. And then I've been in other programs where there are instructions for every movement. And I've found that once you're past that first initial introduction into letter, where you've got whole body dance, and I think, I did have some time with the Jolly Phonics program. Some of you might be familiar with that. You've got lots of different sounds going on as you're looking at the letter. But also when we had a mnemonic or a phrase for every action, I saw a lot more success. So down, down, bounce, up, so that we're not learning brand new words for every single letter.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John and Kelsie and Sam. I think we haven't had any more questions come through, and I am conscious of the time. So we might just swap to this last slide here. First, again, I just want to thank all of our presenters for their time, their energy, and their effort in putting together tonight's presentation. Oxford and I personally really appreciate all of your expertise, and I'm sure that everyone who attended did as well. For anyone who is interested in Oxford's handwriting program, we do have specific state ones for Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales. And you'll receive this in an email. It's also in the handout section of the webinar right now. So you can have a look at our print and digital inspection copies. And there's also an option to start a 4-week free digital sample trial, which gives you access to a digital copy of the book, the interactive that Sam shared before, and as well as some of the support resources like the planner and some specific worksheets that might help for additional practice or things like that. But mostly I want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have a fantastic evening.